Let's stay with tech because we've been
Sure.
talking about tech all day.
Sure.
There's a lot of things going, and we've been talking about, there's all sorts of ethical things going on with data collection and that sort of stuff. But I think there's also, as we talked about many times, there may be some ethical stuff going on with how we're using tech. And I'm thinking of things like human-like robots or virtual reality, all the data that we're collecting, kind of the Big Brother stuff going on. Let's talk about robots. Do the lifelike robots interest you? Is that interesting, or does it kind of freak you out, or what do you think?
Well,
we had a story last week on a very lifelike looking.
Yeah.
They called her the next news announcer, a Japanese, very lifelike looking woman. Robot with even little facial twitches and so it's like, wow, that's really a trip.
Well, it's and Chris Smith knows this better than I do. The term, I think it's called the uncanny valley.
The uncanny valley, right.
We talked about this before.
Where something is almost human, but not quite.
Yeah,
if
it's really, really amateurishly put together robot,
that's cool.
It's fine. If it's something that's a perfect replica that you can't tell the difference, that's fine too, because you don't know.
Yeah.
But it's just when you get into that middle point between the two of them, where their movements are weird and their face isn't really exactly right, their eyes are a little too dead and glassy. You're like, ew, it's upsetting. But yeah, I've thought about this. I mean, certainly it's been a trope in science fiction and movies for a while. Ex Machina was a movie I saw. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yep.
Really interesting movie. And the whole thing with the Turing test and whether you can tell even if a machine is a machine. I mean, I think that one thing that I've heard, which makes kind of sense to me, is that you're going to see, I think, this machinery, this technology used for elder care. In a big way, where I think that there'll be companions, there'll be monitors, there'll be robots essentially that will be lifelike enough to be able to act as aides for elderly people who are in their home.
So a good thing.
Don't go there. It's a good thing.
So a good thing.
I'm not saying that the elderly are less discriminating in terms of what they request in a robot in terms of its lifelike abilities, but certainly it's a function. It's also one that's hard to find people necessarily to do that job sometimes.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of those jobs that are going to be needed, obviously, in the world as the population ages. So that's one that I've heard of that I think is going to be a really good use for this technology. In industry, I mean, it's already there. I mean, and the lifelike nature of it doesn't really matter. I mean, so much. I mean, you've talked a lot about how there's the integration of people with robots,
cobots,
so they don't have to really be walled off as much anymore, where they can be programmed to be much safer for people, for human beings to work alongside them. So that's another one.
Well, here's another question, and this is still along the lines of, are we going too far? So I was watching, there's a CNN program, I think it's still on, Anthony Bourdain's, I can't remember the name of the program, but really interesting. Basically, he's a chef, but he travels the world tasting food, but he also gets into these interesting discussions with peoples in different countries. So I can't remember where he was, but he got talking with some entrepreneurs about virtual reality, and they have an interesting virtual reality product. It's virtual reality porn. Okay. So we've talked about this before. So you put on your VR glasses, and it's like, you're there.
You're there.
Okay. So the question is, with stuff like that, are we simply, as humans, are we simply extending what we've always done? I mean, porn's been around since the time cavemen could draw naked stick figures on a cave wall, right? Yeah. So is this just simply a technological extension of that, or have we reached some sort of point where now we're going too far? And I don't mean just with porn. I just mean in general. Are we taking technology to the point where it's kind of like, we got to maybe back off a little bit? Yeah, I mean,
that's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, there's also been films that talk about the Avatar and things where, Surrogate was another one, I think, with Bruce Willis, I think was another one. But where basically humanity is no longer alive, or you're basically just barely alive, but really your soul is out there in this virtual reality world. That seems like that could be possible, sure, in some sense. There's theories that say that the entire universe is just a virtual reality program that's running, right? And that we're all in it.
Living on our flat world.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, I've often said that virtual reality porn will be the end of human civilization because
it's like
when men in particular can have any sexual experience they want and it's real, basically real.
Yeah.
Why have an interaction with an actual female who's got her own desires and issues?
Well, I mean, and again, just backing away from that a little bit, I mean, there has been all that concern about, kids who kind of start to lack, some people say, a social life because they're just, hey, all their friends
they're just here all the time.
I'm on Facebook,
That's right.
I can Skype, I can do whatever. Why do I need to meet in person?
And when there's not even a device, I mean, what will happen as you go forward with this is there wouldn't even be devices. I mean, this will be in your brain. The sensors in your brain will basically with a flick of the eye get you into reality or virtual reality.
Right.
And at that point, it's going to be so blurred that you're going to not know the difference.
I wish there's a book. There's a book about this where it's kind of a adult teen novel. And I wish I could remember the name of it. It was really good. It's the world where everybody is, I mean, the real world exists, but very few people
engage in it.
Everybody's just basically plugged in and living their entire lives, aside from getting food, living their entire lives online.
They have a movie coming out. I keep on talking about movies.
Probably the same.
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. That's it. Oh man, this is an interesting book.
New Spielberg movie that's coming out.
Really good.
So
really good.
I mean, these are things that have been in the culture for a while. I think people have been thinking about these issues, and they're starting to come to fruition to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that we see right now, you say with the younger generation, right? These kids today. I was in a doctor's office where, the other day, and there was some kids in there, and every one of them was like, and many of the adults too. We're just like, nobody talking to anybody, nobody reading a magazine, everybody just on their own little, and it also affects the socialization of people.
What some people claim. Some people say it's not really.
No, I think that is it. I think that is it. I mean, I know people that are, in their teens or their preteens, and I can't remember that well. It seems to me that in my day we were a little more engaging of others, even adults. Certainly our peer group, you engage with your peer group to play or do things or talk. Now you don't do that. You still engage with your peer group, but you do it online. I mean, you see kids. It's the old joke about the fact that two kids are in the cafeteria, they're sitting right next to each other and texting each other on their phones, right? And they're like sitting right there. It actually happens.
Well, I'll finish this up, but just it's interesting when we think about these is that all this technology that we're talking about, it has two sides of it. Well, I mean two sides in terms of where it's operating. One is kind of on the consumer side, the everyday person side. The other is, if you think about it, all these same technologies we're talking about, whether it's robotics or VR or augmented reality or whatever, are making huge inroads in manufacturing and in how we do business, because it makes manufacturing easier, it makes customer service easier, it makes online customer service easier.
Sure does.
I mean, I do so much chatting with tech support now, and it's gotten to the point where it's actually not too bad. It used to be really sucked, but now it's like chatting tech support. They've gotten it down now. It's okay. I don't mind it. It's good enough. And it's just interesting how these technologies just blossom, and then of course, then they each find their niche in different parts of the world: manufacturing, customer service,
the market.
Porn,
whatever. The power of the market.
Yeah.
Adam Smith was so right about that 200 plus years ago. The hidden hand of the market. I mean, it does very efficiently organize services and products to where they can most be used. And hey, yes, there's pros and cons to it. If there wasn't, we wouldn't even have this discussion. If there wasn't clear benefits to this stuff, then we would say, well, heck, we're not going to do that. That's terrible, right?
Yeah,
but I mean,
right. There are
obviously,
benefits,
there's a lot of benefits in industry and for people as well. I mean, it's incredible to be able to. I live on my smartphone too. I love it, right? Who doesn't? But I mean, it does have pros and cons, and I think the issues that you're raising there are really good ones. I don't know the answer.
And then there's the security issues that Martin was talking about. So
that's right.
You're going to want be sure to watch that. Come and watch that webinar next week. So.